Look at the skyline of Kuala Lumpur. Below, a vibrant, clear metropolis. Above, the exact same city, suffocating under a toxic blanket of agricultural smoke. This shroud of fine particulate matter starts hundreds of miles away. During the dry season, massive tracts of peatland and forest in Indonesia are cleared for agriculture using cheap, rapid slash-and-burn techniques. In 1997, these rapid fires spiraled completely out of control. An estimated 45,000 square kilometers of forest burned, inflicting over $9 billion in economic and health damages across Southeast Asia. Seasonal monsoon winds pick up this local smoke and carry it across the Malacca Strait into Malaysia and Singapore, acting as a massive conveyor belt for toxic particulate matter. Because these wind currents entirely ignore geopolitical boundaries, the nations in their path realized they couldn't fight the pollution alone. They needed a unified, cross-border legal mechanism to protect the region's air. In 2002, the 10 member states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations signed the Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution. It was the world's first legally binding regional treaty specifically targeting cross-border atmospheric pollution. Yet, 2 decades after this legally binding treaty took effect, cities across the region are still routinely forced to shut down schools and ground flights due to hazardous smoke. While the agreement sets ambitious targets for monitoring and prevention, its enforcement is limited by the specific diplomatic rules that govern the region. To see how the treaty is limited, we must look at what it actually succeeds at doing. The agreement established a central hub, the ASEAN Coordinating Centre for Transboundary Haze Pollution Control, tasked with tracking the atmospheric threat. This satellite image shows exactly how tracking works. Red markers denote active fire hotspots across Sumatra, generating visible smoke. By analyzing these shared telemetry clusters, neighboring countries pool meteorological data to build early warning infrastructure, predicting where the next major flare-ups will occur. The agreement also standardizes how these nations communicate the actual threat to their citizens. Display boards like this one in Jambi use the Pollutant Standards Index, giving everyone a unified metric to understand when the air reaches dangerous levels. As a scientific collaboration tool, the agreement operates precisely as intended. It maps the fires, tracks the wind, and measures the toxins. What it cannot do is compel anyone to actually put the fires out. That limitation is the direct result of a foundational diplomatic principle known as the ASEAN Way. For decades, the political bloc has operated on a strict code prioritizing absolute national sovereignty and total non-interference in its members' domestic affairs. This code strips the treaty of its regulatory power. While the agreement is legally binding, it contains no mechanisms for punishment. There are no regional judicial courts, and no authority exists to issue cross-border fines against the corporations or nations responsible for the burning. Even when a massive fire breaks out, the Regional Response Center is paralyzed by protocol. Neighboring countries with available water bombers and specialized firefighting teams cannot legally deploy them across the border unless the host nation explicitly requests their assistance. You cannot effectively legislate a borderless environmental crisis when the highest governing political rule is a refusal to cross borders. With the regional framework stalled by diplomacy, nations have been forced to write their own laws. In 2014, Singapore enacted the Transboundary Haze Pollution Act, an attempt to domestically penalize foreign entities whose emissions cause harm across national boundaries. But prosecuting a foreign agribusiness through domestic courts requires complex evidence tying specific smoke to specific corporate landholdings. The legal delays mean the immediate physical burden of defending against the toxic air falls directly onto the citizens living under it. When the air quality index surges into hazardous territory, your primary defense is architectural. Microscopic particulate matter easily penetrates standard door and window seals, requiring adhesive weather stripping to lock down entry DAPs. From there, home air conditioning systems must be switched to a strict internal air recirculation mode, so they stop pulling the ambient smoke indoors. Because sealing a room is rarely perfect, you also need active filtration to scrub the air of those tiny particles. If commercial HEPA purifiers are sold out, you can build a Corsi-Rosendahl box by taping 4 high-quality furnace filters to the intake sides of a standard 20-inch box fan. You create an efficient, high-volume clean air delivery system. And if you have to venture outside, standard surgical or cloth masks offer no real protection against agricultural smoke. You need tightly fitting respirators, like an N95, KN95, or KF94. These form a tight seal against the face, physically trapping the toxic matter before it can enter your lungs and bloodstream. International treaties and regional monitoring centers are vital steps toward understanding the haze. But until the political boundaries separating these nations become as permeable as the toxic air crossing them, your respiratory survival remains entirely in your own hands.